Hey friends, I'm Megan, so glad you're here. We've got a great episode today. Let's get started.
She entered the relationship with hope and excitement, believing she had found someone who would be her partner in every sense of the word. Their connection was intense, filled with moments of laughter, shared dreams, and quiet understanding. He seemed attentive and caring, someone who promised to be by her side through all of life's challenges. Yet, as time passed, it became clear that there was a formidable presence in his life. His mother. The bond he shared with her was deep and unwavering, a relationship forged through years of dependence and loyalty. While she respected the importance of family, she soon realized that his devotion to his mother would become a central and difficult issue in their relationship. From the beginning, the dynamics between her and his mother were strained. The mother's expectations were unspoken but palpable, casting a shadow over their interactions. She sensed an undercurrent of judgment and disapproval that was difficult to ignore. The mother held a powerful role, not only in his life but in the fabric of their relationship. Family dinners, holidays, and even everyday decisions were influenced by this maternal presence. The more she tried to establish her place in his life, the more complicated the situation became. It was not just a matter of love and affection but of navigating a complex web of loyalty, tradition, and authority. She felt caught between two worlds: the life she was building with her partner and the family that seemed to resist her inclusion. The tension was subtle at first but grew steadily, manifesting in quiet moments of discomfort and overt conflicts. She noticed how his mother's influence shaped his choices and attitudes, often leaving little room for her own voice. There were times when she felt invisible, sidelined in favor of maintaining peace within the family. This dynamic created an invisible barrier, one that separated her from fully belonging to the life she had hoped to share. The sense of exclusion was painful, planting seeds of doubt and insecurity. Despite these challenges, she tried to hold on to hope. She believed that love and understanding could bridge the gap, that with patience and communication, they could find a way to harmonize their lives. She made efforts to connect with his mother, seeking moments of common ground and warmth. But these attempts were often met with resistance or indifference, reinforcing the divide rather than healing it. The unspoken power struggle simmered beneath the surface, a constant reminder of the fragile nature of their bond. Each attempt to assert herself was met with subtle pushback, making her feel like an outsider in a family she yearned to be part of. The presence of his mother was not just a source of tension but also a test of loyalty for her partner. She saw how he struggled to balance his love for her with his obligation to his family. His actions sometimes reflected this inner conflict. Moments of tenderness with her followed by moments of acquiescence to his mother's demands. This left her feeling uncertain and unsteady, caught in the crossfire of competing loyalties. The promise of partnership was complicated by the reality of a man torn between two important relationships. She longed for him to stand firmly by her side, to set boundaries that would protect their relationship from outside interference. As the strain grew, she began to question her place in his life and the viability of their future together. The hope that had once illuminated their path was now dimmed by the shadows of conflict and exclusion. She grappled with feelings of frustration, sadness, and loneliness, realizing that love alone might not be enough to overcome the powerful ties of family loyalty. The reality of their situation forced her to confront difficult questions about what she was willing to endure and what she deserved. It became clear that the relationship was not just about two people but about the intricate interplay of family dynamics and personal boundaries. Her dreams of a shared life were tinged with uncertainty as she navigated this emotional landscape. The initial excitement gave way to a complex and painful awareness of the challenges ahead. The desire to be accepted and loved by his family was met with obstacles that tested her resilience and resolve. She faced the daunting task of balancing her own needs with the realities of the situation, striving to maintain her identity while trying to forge a connection with a family that seemed resistant to her presence. This delicate dance shaped the early chapters of their story, setting the stage for the difficult choices and conflicts that would follow. In this beginning phase, the emotional stakes were high. She was not just investing in a romantic relationship but in the hope of becoming part of a family and a community. The rejection and exclusion she felt cut deeply, touching on fundamental human needs for belonging and acceptance. The weight of these emotions added layers of complexity to their relationship, influencing every interaction and decision. The tension between love and loyalty, between individuality and family, created a powerful undercurrent that defined their shared experience. It was a struggle to hold on to hope amidst growing uncertainty, a challenge that tested her heart and spirit in profound ways. The growing tension between her and his mother became an inescapable force, casting a long shadow over their once hopeful relationship. As the days passed, the subtle frictions escalated into overt conflicts, each interaction laden with unspoken grievances and simmering resentment. The mother's presence loomed large in every decision, every conversation, and every moment of intimacy. It was clear that her influence extended beyond familial affection into a realm of control that left little room for negotiation. She watched helplessly as the man she loved became increasingly torn between his loyalty to his mother and his commitment to her. This internal struggle on his part manifested in inconsistent behaviors. Moments of warmth and solidarity were quickly followed by withdrawal and concession to his mother's wishes. Her own emotions swirled in a tumultuous blend of frustration, hurt, and confusion. The boundaries she hoped to establish were repeatedly challenged, not only by his mother but by the man she loved who seemed unable or unwilling to set them. She felt caught in a triangle of competing loyalties, where her needs were often sacrificed to preserve peace in the family. The strain of this dynamic wore on her, chipping away at her confidence and sense of security. She began to question whether the love they shared was strong enough to withstand the pressures imposed by family expectations. The realization that she was battling forces beyond the typical challenges of a relationship was both daunting and isolating. In the midst of this growing discord, she grappled with the difficult decision to issue an ultimatum. It was not a choice made lightly, but rather a desperate plea for clarity and commitment. She wanted to protect her own emotional well-being and to salvage the relationship before it eroded completely under the weight of external influences. The ultimatum was a boundary set in the hope that it would prompt him to choose between the woman he loved and the family ties that threatened to consume their future. She understood the risks involved. She risked alienating him, fracturing their bond, and potentially losing everything they had built together. Yet, the alternative, continued compromise and erosion of her identity, felt untenable. Her heart was heavy with fear and hope as she contemplated the consequences of this demand. She feared the pain of rejection, the loneliness of separation, but she also hoped that love would prevail and that he would stand with her against the forces that threatened to divide them. This moment represented a crossroads, a test of their relationship's resilience and his willingness to prioritize their partnership. She longed for him to see the ultimatum not as a threat but as an expression of her deep need for respect and acknowledgement. The hope that this step would lead to healing and unity mingled with the anxiety of what might come. The days leading up to and following the ultimatum were fraught with emotional intensity. Conversations that once flowed with ease became charged with tension and guarded words. The man she loved seemed distant and conflicted, torn between affection for her and obligation to his mother. The family dynamics, once background noise, now took center stage in their lives, shaping every interaction and decision. The balance they sought seemed increasingly elusive as old patterns of favoritism and control reasserted themselves. She observed how his mother's influence affected his choices, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, reinforcing the divide between them. The ultimatum marked a turning point, crystallizing the fault lines that had long existed beneath the surface. It forced all involved to confront uncomfortable truths about loyalty, boundaries, and the nature of love. She faced the painful reality that her demands challenged not just a relationship but an entire system of familial expectations and traditions. The resistance she encountered was not merely personal but cultural and generational, rooted in deeply ingrained beliefs about family roles and responsibilities. Navigating this terrain required strength and resilience she was still learning to muster. Throughout this period, she wrestled with waves of doubt and resolve. She questioned whether her ultimatum was a catalyst for change or a harbinger of loss. The emotional toll was significant, marked by sleepless nights and restless days filled with what-ifs and if-onlys. She felt isolated in her struggle, caught between love and self-preservation. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with potential heartbreak but also the possibility of transformation. This chapter of her story was defined by courage and vulnerability, a testament to the complexity of human relationships and the often painful choices they demand. As the tension mounted, she sought moments of solace and clarity, reaching deep within herself to find the strength to face whatever outcome awaited. The ultimatum was more than a demand. It was a declaration of her worth and a boundary set to protect her heart. The emotional stakes were higher than ever, with the future of her relationship and her sense of belonging hanging in the balance. The struggle to reconcile love, family, and self continued, shaping the course of her journey in ways she could not yet fully comprehend. The moment he made his choice was one that forever altered the trajectory of her life. A decision that resonated deeply within her soul and shattered the fragile hope she had clung to. He chose his mother. This choice, while perhaps unsurprising given the long-standing dynamics that had defined their relationship, felt like a devastating blow to her sense of self and the future they had envisioned together. In that instant, the foundation of their love seemed to crumble, replaced by a cold and painful reality. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on her heart, a reminder that sometimes love is not enough to bridge the divides created by loyalty and obligation. She was left to grapple with the profound sense of betrayal and abandonment that followed. The initial aftermath of his choice was a whirlwind of emotions: shock, disbelief, grief, and an overwhelming loneliness that settled like a shadow over her days and nights. She found herself questioning everything she had believed about their relationship, about the promises made, and about the man she thought she knew. The pain was raw and unrelenting, cutting through her like a sharp blade, leaving wounds that seemed too deep to heal. Her world, once filled with dreams of partnership and family, now felt empty and fractured. The realization that she was alone, without the family she had hoped to build with him, was a profound loss that extended beyond the personal to the very core of her identity. In the days and weeks that followed, she experienced the isolating effects of his choice. The shared spaces they once occupied were now marked by absence and silence. The familiar routines and plans they had made together dissolved into fragments of memory. She navigated the pain of separation not only from him but from the family that had once seemed within reach. The void left by this loss was palpable, a constant presence that colored her thoughts and emotions. She struggled to find meaning and purpose amidst the wreckage, grappling with feelings of rejection and the harsh reality of being left without the support system she had once taken for granted. Her sense of belonging was deeply shaken. The family ties she had hoped to forge were severed, replaced by a cold distance that neither time nor effort seemed able to mend. She felt as if she had been erased from a world she had once been a part of, cast out and left to rebuild on her own. The absence of his family was not just a physical separation but an emotional exile. The loss carried with it a profound loneliness that permeated every aspect of her life. She faced the daunting challenge of redefining herself outside the context of the relationship and the family she had aspired to join. This redefinition was painful but necessary, a journey toward reclaiming her identity and self-worth. The social repercussions of his decision extended beyond their immediate circle. Mutual friends, once a source of comfort and connection, now found themselves caught in the crossfire of divided loyalties. Some distanced themselves, uncertain of how to navigate the fractured landscape. The sense of community she had anticipated was replaced by isolation and fractured relationships. The loss of social support compounded the emotional toll, leaving her feeling more alone than ever. This isolation was a stark contrast to the warmth and inclusion she had once imagined. The unraveling of these connections underscored the far-reaching consequences of his choice and the complexities of love intertwined with family dynamics. Throughout this period, she wrestled with the question of why she had been unable to hold onto what they had built. The notion that her ultimatum had driven him away weighed heavily on her conscience. She grappled with feelings of guilt and self-blame, questioning whether her demands were unreasonable or if there had been another path she could have taken. These reflections were accompanied by the bitter sting of understanding that sometimes, no matter how much love exists, it is not enough to overcome deeply ingrained loyalties. The complexity of human relationships became painfully clear, revealing the limits of personal desire in the face of familial bonds. Amidst the heartbreak, she also faced moments of clarity. She recognized that his choice, while painful, was a reflection of his own struggles and limitations. The love he bore for his mother was profound, rooted in a lifetime of dependency and emotional connection. This recognition did not diminish her pain but offered a framework for understanding the forces at play. It highlighted the difficult position he occupied, torn between two important relationships and unable to reconcile them. This understanding was a step toward forgiveness, a necessary part of her healing process. It allowed her to see beyond the pain and bitterness to the human complexity beneath. The emotional landscape she navigated was one of deep grief and loss, tempered by the gradual emergence of resilience. She mourned not only the loss of the relationship but the loss of the future she had envisioned. A future intertwined with his family and the sense of belonging it promised. The process of mourning was long and arduous, filled with setbacks and moments of despair. Yet, within this process, she began to find seeds of strength and hope. The journey of healing required confronting the pain head-on, embracing the full spectrum of emotions, and gradually rebuilding a life defined not by loss but by possibility. As she moved through this difficult chapter, she began to reclaim her voice and agency. The experience, though deeply painful, became a catalyst for growth and self-discovery. She started to envision a life beyond the shadows of betrayal and abandonment. A life where her worth was not contingent on the choices of others. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was hers to define. The story of his choice and the fallout that followed was a pivotal moment. A rupture that marked both an end and a beginning. Through the pain, she found a new sense of strength and a determination to heal, to grow, and ultimately, to move forward. The aftermath of his choice left her navigating a landscape of profound isolation and loss that extended far beyond the end of their relationship. The rupture severed not only the bond they had shared but also the ties that connected her to a family she had hoped to be a part of. This absence echoed through her life, creating a void that was as emotional as it was social. The sense of belonging she once anticipated now felt like a distant dream, replaced by a stark reality of loneliness and separation. She was left to confront the enormity of being without the partner she loved and the family she had longed for. A dual loss that compounded her grief and reshaped her understanding of home and family. In the weeks that followed, she experienced the rawness of this loss in every aspect of her daily existence. Simple routines that once involved shared moments and familial connections were now solitary and hollow. Holidays, celebrations, and family gatherings became reminders of absence rather than sources of joy. The spaces that had been filled with laughter and love were now marked by silence and memory. She felt like an outsider looking in, disconnected from the warmth and support that others took for granted. This isolation was not merely physical but deeply emotional, a separation from the very foundation of community and belonging that sustains the human spirit. The emotional toll of this isolation was immense. She grappled with feelings of abandonment and rejection that seeped into her sense of self-worth. The loss of family ties was intertwined with the loss of identity, as the roles she had hoped to assume, partner, daughter-in-law, family member, were stripped away. This absence created a sense of rootlessness, a disconnection from the networks of support that anchor individuals in times of hardship. She found herself adrift, navigating a world that suddenly felt unfamiliar and unwelcoming. The loneliness was a persistent companion, sometimes subtle, sometimes overwhelming, shaping her thoughts and emotions with a relentless weight. Her relationships with mutual friends and acquaintances were also affected by this rupture. The social circles that once provided comfort and camaraderie became fractured, as alliances shifted and loyalties divided. Some friends, uncertain of how to respond, distanced themselves, while others took sides, deepening the chasm between her and the community she had hoped to be part of. This social fragmentation compounded her sense of exclusion, leaving her to rebuild her support network from a place of vulnerability and loss. The challenge of reconstructing these connections was daunting, as trust had been shaken and the landscape of relationships altered irrevocably. Within this solitude, she faced the arduous task of rebuilding her sense of self and redefining what family meant to her. The loss of the partner and the familial bonds forced a reevaluation of identity, priorities, and sources of support. She began to explore new avenues for connection, seeking relationships that offered acceptance and understanding without the conditions and complexities that had characterized her previous experience. This process was both painful and liberating, requiring courage to let go of old hopes and the openness to embrace new possibilities. The journey toward healing was gradual, marked by moments of despair and flickers of hope. The emotional journey was characterized by a complex interplay of grief, anger, and reflection. She mourned not only the tangible losses but also the intangible: trust, security, and the dream of a shared future. Anger toward the circumstances and the individuals involved surfaced intermittently, a natural response to betrayal and abandonment. These feelings, while painful, were part of the broader process of emotional processing and eventual acceptance. Through reflection, she began to understand the dynamics that had led to her isolation, gaining insight into her own needs, boundaries, and the importance of self-respect. As time passed, she cultivated resilience in the face of adversity. The solitude that once felt suffocating gradually became a space for growth and self-discovery. She developed a deeper understanding of her own strength and capacity for healing. This resilience was not a sudden transformation but a slow and steady rebuilding of confidence and hope. She learned to find comfort in her own company, to nurture her passions and interests, and to build a life that was fulfilling and authentic on her own terms. The process of creating a New sense of family, one built on chosen connections rather than blood ties, became a source of empowerment and renewal. The experience reshaped her conception of family and belonging. She recognized that family was not solely defined by biology or tradition but by love, respect, and mutual support. This broader understanding allowed her to forge meaningful relationships that transcended the limitations of her previous experiences. She embraced the possibility of creating a chosen family, one that honored her values and provided the acceptance she needed. This redefinition was a crucial step in her journey toward emotional freedom and fulfillment. Despite the challenges and losses, she found a renewed sense of hope and possibility. The pain of isolation and loss remained a part of her story, but it no longer defined her. She was learning to move forward with grace and strength, to build a life that reflected her true self, and to open her heart to new connections and experiences. The chapter of isolation and loss, while deeply painful, was also a beginning, a foundation for growth, healing, and the reclamation of her life and happiness. Her internal struggle was a turbulent sea of conflicting emotions, where grief, anger, regret, and hope collided in waves that threatened to overwhelm her at times. She found herself repeatedly confronting the same questions, questioning the choices she had made and the person she had become in the aftermath of loss. The decision to give an ultimatum, a boundary meant to protect her heart and assert her worth, felt both necessary and yet devastatingly costly. In the solitude of her reflection, she wrestled with feelings of guilt and doubt, wondering if there might have been another way, a softer path that would have spared her the heartbreak and isolation that now defined her life. Yet, beneath the swirl of emotions, there was a growing recognition that her pain was part of a journey toward self-discovery and healing. She began to peel back the layers of her experience, seeking to understand the deeper patterns and fears that had shaped her actions. The fear of being marginalized, overlooked, or controlled by the powerful presence of her partner's mother was a profound motivator behind her ultimatum. This fear was rooted in a desire for respect, equality, and a place where her voice mattered. In confronting these feelings, she came to see that her struggles were not just about a single relationship but about asserting her identity and boundaries in a complex web of family dynamics. This realization was both empowering and daunting, as it required her to claim her space and navigate the intricate emotions tied to love, loyalty, and self-respect. Throughout this process, she encountered moments of profound self-reflection that challenged her assumptions and beliefs. She questioned her own patterns of behavior and the ways she might have contributed to the growing divide. This was not an exercise in self-blame but an honest examination of how vulnerability and fear can influence decisions in relationships. She recognized the difficulty of balancing love with self-preservation and the delicate dance of setting boundaries without pushing loved ones away. These insights deepened her understanding of herself and the complex nature of human connection. Her coping strategies evolved over time, shaped by the necessity to find stability amid emotional upheaval. She sought solace in solitude, allowing herself space to grieve and process her feelings without judgment. At the same time, she began reaching out for support from trusted friends, therapists, or communities that could offer empathy and guidance. These connections became lifelines, helping her to anchor herself and regain a sense of perspective. She discovered the importance of self-care rituals, whether through creative expression, physical activity, or mindfulness practices, that nurtured her body and mind. These practices were essential in rebuilding her resilience and fostering emotional balance. As she navigated the complexity of her emotions, she also confronted the challenge of forgiving both others and herself. Forgiveness was not immediate nor easy. It was a gradual process that unfolded in stages. She grappled with forgiving her partner for choosing his mother, understanding that his decision, painful as it was, reflected his own limitations and struggles. More difficult was the forgiveness of herself for the ultimatum she had issued, for the pain it caused, and for the loss it precipitated. This self-forgiveness was a vital step toward healing, enabling her to release the heavy burden of guilt and self-judgment that had weighed her down. Through forgiveness, she found a pathway to freedom from the past. The emotional journey was marked by fluctuations, days of hope interspersed with setbacks and moments of despair. She learned to embrace these fluctuations as natural and necessary, understanding that healing is rarely linear. Each step forward was a victory, no matter how small, and each moment of doubt was an invitation to deepen her self-compassion. She cultivated patience with herself, recognizing that recovery from such profound loss takes time and grace. This attitude allowed her to face the future with a sense of cautious optimism, open to the possibilities that lay ahead. In the midst of this process, she began to rediscover her strengths and passions. The pain that had once felt overwhelming slowly gave way to renewed energy and curiosity about life. Beyond the confines of her past relationship, she explored new interests, reconnected with old hobbies, and sought experiences that brought joy and fulfillment. This renewal was a powerful affirmation of her resilience and capacity for growth. It signaled a turning point where she began to reclaim her narrative and envision a future shaped by her own desires and values. The journey of coping and self-reflection also deepened her empathy and understanding toward others. Her experiences with loss and heartbreak fostered a greater awareness of the complexities and vulnerabilities inherent in human relationships. She became more attuned to the struggles that others face and more compassionate in her judgments. This empathy enriched her connections and offered a foundation for healthier, more authentic relationships moving forward. Ultimately, her process of coping and self-reflection laid the groundwork for transformation. It was a chapter marked by honest confrontation with pain, courageous self-exploration, and the gradual rebuilding of hope and self-worth. Through this journey, she emerged with a deeper understanding of herself and the strength to face the challenges of life with renewed confidence. This chapter was not just about surviving loss but about growing through it, finding meaning, healing, and the possibility of new beginnings. The path toward moving forward and embracing new beginnings was neither straightforward nor easy, but it became a journey of profound transformation and renewal. After the depths of loss, isolation, and self-reflection, she gradually found herself stepping into a new chapter of her life. One defined not by what had been taken from her but by what she was reclaiming and creating for herself. This transition was marked by a growing sense of empowerment and self-awareness, an emergence from the shadows of heartbreak into the light of possibility. The process of rebuilding was slow and deliberate, requiring patience, courage, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty with an open heart. She began by redefining her sense of identity beyond the confines of the past relationship and the family ties that had shaped so much of her life. No longer defined by loss or rejection, she sought to understand who she was as an individual, her values, her passions, and her desires independent of external validation. This self-discovery was both exhilarating and daunting, as it required letting go of familiar narratives and expectations. She embraced the freedom that came with forging a new path, one where she could make choices based on her own needs and aspirations rather than the demands of others. This reclamation of self was a foundational step in moving forward. The process of building a new life also involved cultivating new relationships and nurturing existing ones that offered genuine connection and support. She surrounded herself with people who respected her boundaries and celebrated her growth, forming a chosen family that provided a sense of belonging and acceptance. These relationships, grounded in mutual respect and understanding, became a source of strength and healing. Through these connections, she experienced the restorative power of love and friendship, reminding her that family can be created in many forms and that she was not alone in her journey. With time, she found joy in exploring new interests and opportunities that had once been overshadowed by her previous circumstances. Whether through creative pursuits, professional endeavors, or personal challenges, she embraced experiences that nurtured her growth and expanded her horizons. This active engagement with life brought renewed energy and a sense of purpose, fueling her resilience and optimism. Each new step, no matter how small, reinforced her belief in the possibility of happiness and fulfillment beyond past pain. Her relationship with vulnerability evolved significantly during this period. Where once fear and avoidance had dominated, she now approached vulnerability as a source of strength and authenticity. She learned that opening herself to the possibility of connection, even with the risk of hurt, was essential to building meaningful relationships. This shift allowed her to engage with others more deeply and honestly, fostering intimacy and trust. The courage to be vulnerable became a cornerstone of her renewed sense of self and her capacity for love. As she moved forward, she also embraced forgiveness, not only of others but of herself. This forgiveness was a liberating force, releasing her from the burdens of resentment, guilt, and regret. It opened the door to healing and growth, allowing her to focus on the present and future rather than being anchored to the past. Forgiveness became an act of self-care, a commitment to nurturing her well-being and embracing the fullness of her human experience. This attitude transformed her perspective, infusing her journey with compassion and hope. The process of moving on also involved setting new boundaries and affirming her worth. She became more attuned to her needs and more assertive in protecting her emotional and physical space. This empowered stance enabled her to engage in relationships that honored her and to disengage from those that did not serve her growth. The clarity gained through this process strengthened her confidence and resilience, equipping her to navigate future challenges with grace and determination. Throughout this transformative chapter, she continued to reflect on the lessons learned from her past experiences. These insights deepened her understanding of love, loyalty, and self-respect, informing her choices and interactions. She recognized that healing is an ongoing journey, one that requires continual attention and care. This wisdom became a guiding light, helping her to cultivate a life grounded in authenticity and balance. Ultimately, her journey toward new beginnings was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for renewal and growth. Despite the pain and setbacks, she emerged with a renewed sense of hope and possibility. Her story became one of resilience, courage, and the enduring power of love to transform even the most challenging circumstances. As she looked toward the future, she did so with an open heart and a steadfast commitment to living fully and authentically. This new chapter was not just an end to the past but a vibrant beginning, an invitation to embrace life's richness and the promise of all that was yet to come.
Thanks for watching. It means a lot. Share the video, and I'll see you soon. Hey friends, I'm Megan, so glad you're here. We've got a great episode today. Let's get started.